Hi everybody, my name is Angela Cleary. I'm a life coach and I specialise in healing after narcissistic abuse. So today I want to talk about forgiveness. When it comes to forgiveness, we make the mistake of believing forgiveness is about the other person. We feel that the other person doesn't deserve our forgiveness. But when we forgive people, it's not about them. It's not about condoning their behaviour. It's not about saying that you're okay with what happened. It's about being able to release that pain, to release that person, and to release yourself from that anger, that hurt, and that abuse that you went through. It's about healing yourself, detaching yourself, and forgiveness is about self-healing. It's not about agreeing with that other person's behaviour. We don't have to go up to a person that has abused us or that has hurt us to forgive them. We need to forgive them in our hearts to release ourselves from that anger, to release ourselves from that hatred. Because when we don't forgive a person, we're only hurting ourselves. That person, whoever hurt us, they're not worrying every day about what they did. They don't care. They have no remorse for what they did. They never will. When a person is bad, a lot of the time they are unforgivable, maybe. I don't really want to use that word, but we feel that they're unforgivable, that they don't deserve our forgiveness. But by holding on to that person doesn't care. That person isn't going around worrying every day whether or not we forgive them or not. But we're going around with this hatred, this anger, this pain, and we're torturing ourselves by holding on to what that person did. Now, as I said, we're not condoning the behaviour. We're not saying, oh, I'm okay with what you did to me. We're saying, I let it go because I need to heal myself. Now, I didn't even understand this for years, and I'll describe what happened a few years ago for me to understand why I needed to release this pain, release that person. So I was in a narcissistic relationship for almost 8 years, and it was about 2 or 3 years later, after we'd broken up, that he nearly died. And he had an aneurysm, and I was told this by friends, and I was like, I don't care. I have nothing to do with him. I do not care. And my body reacted as if I did care. I started to feel ill because I was ignoring the fact that I did care. But why did I care? Because I didn't think I cared. So I had to speak to my unconscious mind. I had to figure out why was I reacting as if I cared about him after what he had done to me. And I hated him. I hated him with such a passion with what he had done to me that I did not care that he nearly died. That's how I felt on the outside. But internally, I reacted as if I did care. So I had to speak and figure out to my unconscious mind, why the fuck was I reacting to this guy's pain, to him nearly dying, when he had hurt me so much that all I felt for him was anger and hate, and I just did not care. What in actual fact was after happening, I figured out, was that I felt guilty. I felt guilty that he'd nearly died because I had wished such badness on him, such anger and such hatred towards him after what he did to me, that I felt responsible for him nearly dying. Unconsciously, I felt, oh my God, am I after killing him? By my thoughts, by my hatred towards him, by that negative energy I was throwing towards him. And I felt such guilt towards what was going on in his life. And that's when I realised that I was only hurting myself by holding on to such anger and hatred towards him. He didn't care. He didn't care that I didn't forgive him or that he was getting on with his life. Okay, yes, he nearly died, but that's beside the point. I was in pain and anger and such hatred holding on to what he did to me that I felt responsible for his illness, even though he drank excessively and that's the reason he got an aneurysm. Like, it wasn't my fault that he nearly died. It wasn't. But because I had held such pain and anger towards him, I actually felt responsible for his near death. So therefore, I started to learn that forgiveness is about releasing that person so that you can heal, so that I could heal from that. So I understood about my other ex as well, because every time I thought about both of them, I was just so angry and such pain and such hatred towards them. But that pain and anger wasn't going to be going towards them because they weren't in my life anymore. It was only hurting me. It was hurting me, and it was prolonging my hatred, my pain, because I was holding on to what they did to me. And I couldn't heal from that shit because I was holding on to such resentment and such anger. So I realized I needed to forgive them in order to release my pain and my anger and my hurt. So as I said, it's not about saying I'm okay with what you did to me, or what you did was all right, like, or I'm condoning your behavior. That is not what you're saying. What you're saying is, I release this from my life so that I can heal and move on. I release this pain, this anger, this hurt, and I forgive that person for doing what they did, whatever they did it. When a person does something to you, it is not a reflection of who you are. So you need to release that in order to move on, in order to heal. Now, it's the hardest thing to ever do, to release that hate and anger towards my exes, because they didn't, in my mind, they didn't deserve forgiveness. But as I said, we can't say that person doesn't deserve forgiveness. As I said, it is not about that person. You deserve to let go of this hatred, this pain, this anger. Because as I said, your unforgiveness of them, your hate, your anger is bubbling up, and it's hurting you. It's hurting your body. When I felt that, when my ex nearly died, my body reacted. I was in pain. My body reacted. It reacted to tell me this, that I felt guilty for that, for him nearly dying. Now, he got better, and that was thank God, like, at the end, when he did get better, I felt a relief that I didn't kill him with my thoughts. Now, that's a mad thing to think, that I even felt responsible for his illness, because it had nothing to do with me. But I felt such guilt and pain inside me because I thought I caused that because I hated him so much. So that's why I needed to release it. That's why I needed to forgive it. And as I said, it was very hard for me to forgive my exes. But there was one when I started learning about forgiveness, the hardest person I had to forgive was a person who caused me trauma in my late 20s, who I would safely describe as a monster. And how do you forgive a monster? How do you forgive somebody that doesn't actually deserve that kind of forgiveness? And that is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, is to forgive somebody I believed was a monster. But in my forgiveness of him, I released the anger and pain that I still held to that trauma. So therefore, I was able to heal more from that than I ever thought I could. This is a trauma that I never thought I could heal from. Or if I did heal from it, I never thought it would leave my mind. I never thought I'd get to the stage where I am now, that I'd be able to heal from that intense trauma. But because I chose to forgive that person, I was able to heal myself better than I ever thought I could. Now, this trauma obviously still hurts me when I think about it, but I can talk about it now because I've released it, because I forget that person. Now, that person, as far as I'm still concerned, that technically that person didn't deserve forgiveness, because that person did not show any remorse, and he was we call it a repeat offender. So therefore, he was going to continue to do what he did without ever atoning or getting better or not repeating his past mistakes. But I didn't forgive him because I don't condone what he did, but I needed to save myself. I needed to heal my wounds from that trauma in order to move on with my life. And if I did not forgive him, or if I did not forgive my exes, then I wouldn't be where I am right now. I would still be holding on to that hatred and that anger, and that pain would still be in my body as intensely as it was the day that it happened, or when I was in those relationships. So this is why it's so important to forgive. And I've heard it so many times. I said it myself so many times. I can't forgive them. They don't deserve it. They did this, they did that, and they did the other. Yes, they did, but it's not about them. If you want to heal yourself, and if you want to find a way to move on from this experience or that pain or that trauma, you need to release it. You need to release that anger out of your body by forgiving. And it's, as I said, it is not condoning that behaviour. It is not. It has nothing to do with that person and everything to do with yourself. You need to, like, that pain, that anger, that resentment that you hold towards another person isn't hurting that other person. It's only hurting you and your heart. And it keeps your heart and your walls around your heart closed and closed and closed. Because you're holding on to that pain and that memory, that trauma. And the only way you can release and move on from that is to forgive and release that person. Understand that that person had their own reasons for doing this shit and that it had nothing to do with you. Now, that's not atoning, or it's not condoning their behaviour, but every person who does something wrong is doing it because of their own shit, their own trauma, their own circumstances. Now, that doesn't condone the behaviour. Once I will reiterate that so many times. This is not saying their behaviour is okay. Forgiveness is not saying that a person's behaviour is okay. Forgiveness is about you and your healing and your release. And that's what you need to do. You need to heal your heart, your body and your soul from that trauma. And if you keep reliving that experience over and over again, if you keep bubbling up with hatred and anger for another person, you are prolonging your pain, you're prolonging your trauma, you're prolonging that attachment to that past. You cannot move on. You cannot become a better version of yourself if you're holding on to such resentment and anger and frustration towards another person. So, as I said, forgiveness is about you. Forgiveness is about your healing journey and has absolutely nothing to do with what they actually did. It is to do with your release from that situation. Now, another thing I want to talk about is self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is one thing that we really find it hard to do, as well as forgiving other people. But fucking forgiving ourselves is so hard, because we punish ourselves so much for decisions we made in the past. And even say, before I forgive my exes and forgive those bad people in my past, you're also holding on to an anger and resentment towards yourself for allowing yourself to have let those people into your life. Or is there something you could have done differently so that to have prevented a certain trauma? So you start to, you're angry towards yourself, you're bitter towards yourself for making a mistake or for making a decision that may have led to this. And you question, you give out, you punish yourself effectively for being with that person or for making a decision or making a mistake to lead to something else. But when we're younger, we make decisions based on our circumstances. So I grew up in a small town, and I made mistake after mistake after mistake due to my low self-worth, but also due to my environment. So I have to forgive my decisions back then because I didn't know anything else. You can't blame your past self for a decision or a mistake they made because you didn't know any better. But one thing about self-forgiveness is, if you make a mistake, if you make a bad decision, if you hurt another person, but if you know you do, if you acknowledge your mistake, if you own that shit and you atone for it and you move on knowing that you will not repeat that because you know you've done something wrong. When you apologize for something, when you genuinely know that you made a bad decision or yet genuinely know that you made a bad mistake, you deserve forgiveness as well. You deserve to forgive yourself and release yourself from that version of yourself because you've grown through that mistake. You've learned a lesson from that mistake and you will not repeat that mistake. So we cannot keep punishing ourselves over and over and over again for something we did in the past when we've chosen to move on and chosen to learn from it. And when you don't repeat bad behaviours, when you don't repeat that mistake, this in itself is growing and learning. So you need to stop punishing yourself and stop hurting yourself based on a decision you made when you knew no different. As we learn and grow, we stop making these mistakes. Once we stop repeating the same mistakes over and over, once we understand we've done something wrong, we need to forgive ourselves. And we see, when we don't forgive ourselves either, we're holding on to the past, and that will in turn prevent us from moving forward. And we won't let ourselves experience new things. We won't allow ourselves to deserve new things because we're hating on ourselves for something we did in the past. But we all deserve a second chance. We really do. Like, it's different when it comes to repeat abusers. That's different. A person who keeps repeating their mistakes, okay, they need to be forgiven for yourself so you can release that trauma. And I know it sounds a bit different, but the forgiveness for them is not to condone their behaviour, and it's nothing to do with them at the end of the day. So as I said, it's about your healing. But when you make mistakes in the past, you cannot keep hurting yourself because of that mistake, providing you don't repeat it over and over again. You need to be able to forgive yourself so you can move on, so you can actually live a life of fulfillment. If we hold on to the past too tightly, we're never going to move forward. And that's one of the biggest problems I've had. I've had such walls around my heart due to stuff that has happened in my past, due to choices that I've made in my past, and due to me not forgiving myself. You know, and it's not even that, like, I hold resentment towards myself or punish myself for a choice that I may have made when I was in a different circumstance, or I had lower self-worth, or I was hurting myself. And to punish myself for this is making me not move forward, or making me feel like I believe that I'm not deserving of love because of a decision I made in the past. So this, like, lack of self-forgiveness would build barriers around your heart and prevent you from actually opening up to love in the future. Past relationships, they happened because we needed to learn lessons to move forward and to move up. Past decisions, past mistakes, were all there as lessons. They're mistakes. We need to make these mistakes so that we can grow. But holding on to resentment for yourself over these mistakes is not going to help you grow. We need to actually understand that what we went through or what we decided on back then was a part of our growth, was a part of our journey. And we need to understand that each mistake is a lesson to help us grow. But we cannot grow if we continue to hold those walls around our hearts and punish ourselves for decisions we made in the past. We need to release that for ourselves to grow. It's the same with forgiving another person, same with forgiving yourself. You need to release that part so that you can grow, so that you can move on, and so that you can open up to love, to open up to more fulfilling life decisions and life choices and life experiences. We cannot hold ourselves responsible for the decisions we made in the past because they were all part of our plan. They were all part of our journey, all a part of our timeline. We cannot be this version of ourselves, a better version of ourselves, if we don't make those mistakes. Like, life happens for you, not to you. I realise now that my abusive relationships or past traumas were not, okay, they're horrible. There was a time in my life that I wish I could go back and press rewind and erase all of it. But now I understand that all of that shit had happened to me so that I could grow into the best version of myself. It happened for me to become a better person. I didn't deserve what happened, but I suppose you can't have one without the other. You can't have good without bad. You can't appreciate love without hate. You need to experience darkness before you can see the light. And that's why I know now my past was so dark, was because I needed to become this brightest version of myself. Because I needed to grow from all of that. But you cannot grow without forgiveness. You cannot grow without forgiving the past, forgiving those people, but forgiving yourself. And that's just something I'm working on every day, to forgive myself for past decisions. And they're not mistakes. They're not mistakes. I keep saying I was wrong or I did this wrong. You didn't do it wrong. We didn't do it wrong. It was a part of our growth. It was a part of our journey. It had to happen to make us this version. It had to happen for us to learn. I wouldn't be doing this video if I didn't learn from my past mistakes. You know what I mean? We need to grow and learn and forgive ourselves for these decisions we made in the past. We need to stop holding on to that choice or whatever, because it wasn't a wrong choice. It wasn't a wrong decision, and it wasn't a mistake. It was a lesson. It was a lesson for you to grow. It was a lesson for you to become a better version, to learn more about who you are and about life and about this kind of thing. We cannot grow, we cannot ascend, we cannot move upwards if we don't learn and forgive as we go. Because that's the thing, we shouldn't even be in a position where we need to forgive ourselves, because we didn't do anything wrong. We just made a decision based on what we knew at the time, or based on our pain. A lot of our mistakes when we're younger are based on our lack of self-worth, are based on our trauma and our inner core wounds. Like, I have an abandonment wound, I have a rejection wound. I've made a lot of decisions in my past based on that low self-worth part of myself. But as I grow and learn and build on my self-worth, I won't make those mistakes again. Do you know what I mean? Like, so this is the whole point. We need to start giving ourselves credit for these lessons and this growth, rather than punishing ourselves for these decisions, because it was all a part of the process. It was all a part of it to get us to a better version of ourselves. So forgive yourself. Atone for your mistakes. Like, obviously, if you keep repeating things, your life is never going to change. The cycle will keep repeating. The universe will keep putting stuff in front of you that is the same. Repeating cycles will keep putting the same person in front of you, or the same relationships in front of you, or the same lessons in front of you, until you learn. And you will keep repeating that cycle and keep repeating those mistakes until you start to forgive yourself and realize that these are lessons. So when you grow and learn from that and release it, the next time the universe puts that same person or same situation in front of you, you can say no to it, because you know you deserve better now, because you aspire to be better, because you've grown through these mistakes and grown through these lessons. So this is where release of the past and self-forgiveness is so important as well. Forgiveness of other people, forgiveness of situations, forgiveness of your own choices. As you learn and grow, like, the universe will still present you with these same people. So, like, for example, like, you know, might bring an ex back into your life, or a narcissist back into your life, to see if you learned, to see if you've grown. And I remember back in 2019, I thought I'd healed, and then I attracted another narcissist in a relationship. Thankfully, I only knew him 2 months, so I went from an 8-year narcissistic relationship to a 1.5 to 2 months. You see what I'm saying? It gets better. So I learned from my mistakes, I learned from those choices, and then I've chosen since to stay single until I know I'm fully grown, until I know I've overcome those past choices and past mistakes, so that I will attract better. But, like, the universe even lately brought another narcissist back into my life. And literally, after a few text messages, it's a guy I knew from school, like, but after a few text messages, I was like, oh my God, he's narcissistic. Do you know what I mean? But I learned straight away. Do you get me? So every time we grow and learn and forgive ourselves and forgive our pasts, we will be presented with the same situation, but we will release it quicker. So you need to be aware of this as well. Be aware of the patterns. Be aware of the universe presenting you with these tests. Because in fairness, you're going to keep repeating the same cycles. You're going to keep repeating the same mistakes unless you learn and forgive and release yourself from the past. So start like releasing yourself from those mistakes, understanding that there weren't mistakes, they were lessons, they were all part of your growth, and start to give yourself credit for that growth. And believe that you deserve better. Believe that your past is not going to repeat itself. Believe that those mistakes won't repeat itself if you do not allow them to, and if you grow through it. And therefore, the next time the universe presents you with a narcissist or a toxic relationship, you can literally go, not this time, you know, and move on like this, and grow quicker and quicker and quicker every time. And each lesson gets smaller every time as you grow and grow. But you just need to release this kind of stuff for your healing, for your growth. Believe in yourself and believe that you won't repeat that cycle. It is all about self-belief. Believe that you will not repeat that cycle. Learn from that previous mistake or previous lesson or previous obstacle or previous choice. Forgive yourself and let it go. Release that past, and that's something, as I said, I'm still working on. I still kind of go, oh, why did I do this? Or why did I do it this way? You did it this way because the universe told you to do it this way, to learn and grow. And now the next time it's going to be better. So like, I still have blocks. I know I do. And like, I'm happily healing these blocks every day so that my heart opens again. So like, this is something I need to work on, is my own self-forgiveness for choices I've made. And they weren't even mistakes. They weren't even bad things that I did. Because as I've said, over the last few years, I've stayed single and stuff. But I had lessons to learn as well, which is fair enough. But I'm kind of going, I'm giving out to myself for doing something wrong. And I was like, you didn't do it wrong. It was a lesson. It was a part of your path. So we need to be more compassionate with ourselves for these things that we do, because they are part of our growth. And like, when we're presented with the crossroads, we're choosing left or right. And if we choose left, if we choose that mistake again, or that the narcissistic relationship again, it still will lead us into the right path. It still leads us forward. But we just have more lessons to learn if we choose this direction. Like, and then next time you can choose the good path, the right decision, because you've learned more on the wrong decision, say. And I hate saying wrong decision because it's a part of our growth. It's a part of our lessons. It's karmic lessons. We have to go through it. Like, we will go through it again and again and again until we learn our lesson. Until that time comes where the universe will present it again and we can say no. So it is a part of our growth, but we need to be compassionate with ourselves along this journey and forgive ourselves for these decisions and choices. And love and be compassionate with ourselves for this growth, and give ourselves credit for the lessons we have learned. And know that we deserve more. Know that we don't have to repeat these cycles. Know that we don't have to repeat those same mistakes. We need to open our eyes, look within, and grow and learn from anything that has happened in our past. Atone for our mistakes, forgive ourselves, and move on, and do not repeat the same cycles. Know that when the universe presents you with something, there's a lesson in everything. There's a lesson in everything. So if the universe presents you with something that looks familiar, ask yourself, is this another lesson? Is this going to be a repeated cycle? Look for the red flags. Listen to your intuition. Listen to your soul. And know what is right for you and what is wrong for you. Because if something looks a lot familiar, very familiar to the past, more than likely, it is the universe testing you. The universe is testing you to see, are you ready for your new path, or do you need to repeat another cycle to learn and wake the fuck up? So yeah, just a lot of self-compassion, a lot of healing, and look, know that these are lessons, and just be kind to yourself and understand that it is all a part of your growth, and that you deserve forgiveness, and you deserve to forgive others for your healing, not for their behavior, but for your healing. So release the anger, release the pain that you hold towards other people or yourself. No matter what that person did, no matter how much of a monster you think that person is, no matter how much abuse that they give to you, you're not condoning their behavior. You're forgiving to release that pain and that hatred and that anger that you still hold, so that you can move on with your life and that you can get better. So yeah, thanks for listening today, and if this resonates, please like and share. And please like and share my page. And if you need help in your journey, please ring me for a discovery call today. Thanks for listening. See you again.